Oh, we're live.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Kind of Funny podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside the producer/seducer, Nick Scarpino.
Hello, Greg. Top of the morning to you.
Top of the muffin to you, Forbes 30 under 30, a.k.a. the second best baby blues in San Francisco, a.k.a. the verified one, at Tim Gettys.
Let Tim host. Very happy to be here today.
You should be, all right? We're finally going to get some answers out of this guy because, ladies and gentlemen, our guest is none other than the creator of The Walking Dead and Invincible, Robert Kirkman.
Oh, boy. Here I am.
Finally.
No regrets.
Yes.
So you
yes,
trust
is the
me.
key word there.
By the end of this, you will have regrets, Robert. Thank you for coming through today. How are you?
So that's how we're opening this. It's just, this is gonna go poorly. By the end, we'll all regret it. Okay.
Well, here's the thing that I think we need to get addressed right at the top of the show is that even before we got into this, Nick was confused by what we were talking about. When we were talking about sausage coming out of the sausage machine when you crank it, Nick said, I was like, you can't eat it. He goes, but sometimes you can. I don't think anyone's ever putting pre-cooked sausage into the sausage machine, Nick.
So, okay, but the hot dog is pre-cooked, right? You can eat a hot dog.
A hot dog is pre-cooked. Robert, a hot dog's pre-cooked?
Dude, I don't know anything about anything anymore. I'm not answering hot dog questions.
Robert, he doesn't want that heat because if he answers it wrong and someone eats a hot dog and then
that's
throws
true.
up,
that's a great point.
I cannot comment on the edibility of uncooked hot dogs because
Robert, we don't have an empire. So I will go out on a limb and say, eat all the pre-cooked hot dogs you want. I don't care. Take them out of the package and try to swallow them all in one. It doesn't matter to me.
Don't do that.
I'm just saying that the sausage, when you see it getting ground up and put in the casing, that still needs to be cooked. You're not seeing a pre-cooked one there, Nick.
I was always raised to be scared of eating hot dogs that aren't cooked in the same way that 80s kids were scared of quicksand lasers. So I don't know.
I used to be so scared of quicksand.
See,
we all were, Robert. We grew up thinking it's going to be right there in the playground. You're done. It's over.
Literally everywhere in pop culture. Where did the quicksand go?
That's a really great question because we were watching we did Indiana Jones in review and obviously there's quicksand in that and nobody believed me when I said we used to go out to like our backyard and be like, is that quicksand? And we knew it wasn't, but like there was a possibility there was a little sinkhole there. You're going to fall away and just be gone forever.
Well, so here's the thing.
Growing up, find a kid's cartoon from Find a kid's cartoon from the 80s that doesn't have a quicksand scene in it. And
it's true.
I'll give you a medal.
When I was growing up, there was a playground with it was called Mountain Lake Park because at this place there was a mountain, there was a park, and there was also a lake. Yeah. And in that lake, it wasn't quicksand, but I mean, I don't know. It's what I would call it because it was sand that you can sink into. And a horse went in the lake one time, died, and started. Yeah, it couldn't get out. They had to shoot him. They had to shoot the horse.
Wait, it was quicksand.
Right.
True story. It wasn't quicksand. It was just.
Tim, your mom always told me it was quicksand, and
my mom also told me not to eat uncooked hot dogs. I don't think my mom knows shit, but that horse is dead.
Do you know how much that scene in Neverending Story traumatized me when I was a kid? And to this day, I can't get near a horse.
I do.
I've ridden a lot of horses. That was a lie, but still, the stuff that we used to watch.
Robert,
you're probably
ridden a lot
bracket.
of horses.
The amount of stuff we were exposed to in the 80s as children is just that would never fly today. And Atreyu trying to pull the horse, I forget the horse's name, Greg, help me out here, out of the mud as it sinks, and he's like, you're my best friend. And he's like, well, I'm dead now. That was it. That was my first entry into things dying.
Yeah, they went pretty hard back then. They were like, it's for kids, but you know what? We're gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, now everybody's afred to, except you, Robert Kirkman, right? Look at you trying to trick everybody with this Invincible cartoon. You started up.
We pretend that we, God, I'm just going to talk over everyone. I apologize.
That's what you do.
No. First off, they're here to see you. Don't worry about me. And secondly, no, that's the conversation. I'm passing the baton. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
I was just going to say we pretend that our cartoon is not for children. That's how we get away with it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't even know where to start with you. First off, again, thanks for coming on. We've known each other for years. You've always been too big for it, but now you're desperate, and I appreciate that.
I don't think you've ever asked me, but okay.
The Greg Miller way.
Call
people a coward before he asks them something nicely.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's our banter. That's what me and Robert do. We do it on panels all the time. We do it in passing at Comic-Con. It's great.
Yeah, that is a mutually agreed upon thing that both of us have talked about. That is
it's an unspoken thing. That's what makes it our thing. You know what I mean? I don't know what you're doing out there when you talk to Fallon or whoever. You know what I mean? You and I, we got this. This is our thing. This is what we're up to.
Okay.
Talk to me about this. How crazy is it right now to you? Like, I know your life has obviously been crazy for a while, obviously, with the juggernaut success of The Walking Dead. You've had other shows, you've had other comic books, you continually create all the time. But now to have Invincible back in the public. I mean, and I say back in the public mindset, but I guess in terms of mainstream, in it for the first time in so many ways. Like, is it lost on you how crazy the story and ride's been?
I mean, it's a little different just because I'm seeing everything virtually. Like when Walking Dead really hit, I'd be promoting it in New York at New York Comic Con, and I'd be like in a car going to some press event, and you would see Walking Dead playing on the TV screen in bars, like just as you're driving down the street, and you could just be like, Walking Dead playing in that bar, Walking Dead playing in that bar. And that stuff was like super crazy. So now like I'm not experiencing that, but I will say that like I could make it a full-time job to just go through my Twitter mentions right now.
Yeah.
Because Invincible is just like people are talking about it constantly. And so that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty nuts seeing just what the response to the show has been, and the fact that people are. I like sometimes I go on Twitter to see what people who don't read comics are saying about Invincible. Like if you just search Invincible just to see like, okay, like these people who have no idea what this thing is, what are they saying? And that stuff is pretty fun. But I have some time in the pandemic to do that. But other than that, I'm only existing in this bubble and seeing what's in the bubble.
Sure. You like this better than the other way though, right? Because I remember one time you and I were at a Comic-Con, I was like, oh man, you want to go out and get a drink today? Like, hell no, I'm going back to my room. I don't do anything.
I am possibly one of the most boring people you'll ever meet. I get a lot of the, hey, I'll buy you a drink sometime. And I'm like, no, you won't.
You'll never see me again.
Because that is not a thing that I do.
So have you been surprised by the reaction? Because personally, I have been, where, I think I talked to you about it. I've talked on the shows about it, of, for Invincible, whenever I gave somebody the comics, whenever I gave them the trade, whenever I gave them the ultimate, it was always wait till the kicker. Like you have to get to this moment before I think you can do it, because you're building something. And I know in comics that was multiple issues. So that was even tougher, I feel. And for the, where we're at right now with a saturation point with superheroes, the way episode 1 of Invincible goes. And by the way, Tim, Nick, we didn't talk about this ahead of time. How do we want to handle spoilers? I think we obviously first 3 episodes of Invincible, I think, are up on the table. That's fine. You should have watched that by now. Amazon Prime, go get it.
Yeah.
But in terms of we've all read the comics, we're not going to go further past that, right?
I would say no.
Let's just stay vague.
Yeah, because I mean that's a quite. I mean, we'll get into it later, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that this might be their first time kind of experiencing it, and I definitely don't want to ruin it for them.
So
yeah, I'll do my best not to mention, Invincible dying in issue 30 of the comic or anything.
Sure.
Like
Well,
that.
when Mark grows that 4th leg, that's when it really gets weird. That's when you kick it up another notch.
I feel like, yeah,
fourth is what you jumped to. Okay.
That's
if I say 3rd leg, everybody's like, "Oh, Greg's making a dick joke," and they crack a Budweiser and do a wheelie. All right, and if I have one more wheelie lawsuit, I'm gonna be pissed off.
Yeah,
right? I can't.
So many. As your lawyer, I recommend against another wheelie lawsuit.
Exactly.
Too many of them.
But like for this one. I've been shocked by the amount of people who didn't turn it off, that didn't think it was, it didn't even necessarily listen to me or see me yelling about like stick to whatever the punchline is going to be, or stick to the, the end credits when I did see it finally. Like I've been shocked the amount of people who stuck around, and then that they had, I can't believe that you did it. Where as a reader of the comic,
hold on, stop. You're shocked that people finished the first episode. You're shocked that people didn't turn it off halfway through. Is that a thing everyone is doing now?
Yeah, dude, that's what people do.
It's instantaneous. You know what I mean? People,
Robert,
if you don't grab them, they're out.
It is like in my household, it is like Gladiator. If my wife doesn't like something, it's thumbs down, and we never go back to it again. There are so many good Netflix shows, so many shows that I have zero context for, because the missus, I had to kill him. And I mean, to be fair though, you're talking about 42 minutes of arguably great storytelling animation, but people have zero attention span these days. So And the other thing that I think you have to realize too, as a person who I assume wrote the source material, is that you purposely have a little bit of a slow burn baked into there for when shit goes bananas at the end of the first episode. It kind of that you need that build up, right? And so I think a lot of it is there. So that's always something I wondered, is like, did you guys expect for people to be like, where's this going right around minute 30 of the animated show, and then bang, you hit them at the end of it?
I mean, I definitely wrote that episode hoping that the content of the episode itself would kind of lull you into this sense of like, why are they saying this is a mature show?
Yeah.
I didn't catch anything that's mature. Like, I heard this thing is violent. I haven't seen any violence, like I wanted people to be going, this could be a kid show. Like, why, like what's going on here? Just to make sure that, the end packed as much punch as possible. And, we did have some concerns. Yeah, I am a little bit aware of people that, don't make it through full episodes. I mean, Amazon talks about that a lot, and they're very data driven. And, 20% of the people watching this show don't make it past minute 15. That's a thing that comes up in meetings and things. And so yeah, like, I tried to make the White House sequence at the beginning as spectacular as possible, with the different Guardians doing different cool things.
Yeah, come on. Yeah.
To try and, show that there are cool things coming, and, but yeah, I mean, it was an effort to try and, fool people into thinking the show was one thing, so that we could tell them that it was actually something completely different by the end of the episode.
And I think you did such a great job.
Yeah, I was going to say you succeeded.
And like, to my point, I can't believe you did it again, where what I felt reading the comic book, I got to see my wife go through watching the show. Where when it did happen, it was the Invincible splash screen. Okay. And then it starts, right? And then we go into it and the killing begins, to have her go, what the fuck is happening? Like, like, where is this the show? And I had to be like, yeah, like she didn't know it was, supposed to be mature or violent. And I think, even now when you look at the way it's being marketed, and some of the key art that is being used a lot is, marked down with blood on his face a bit, like trying to give you a hint of like, this isn't going to be just the Superman Superboy show that I think people might think it is at, knee-jerk reaction. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon is very clear that, they don't want anyone watching this show with their kids thinking that it's a kid show. So all the marketing is very much like, try and put the violence front and center, try and make sure people are aware that this is something different that they're getting into. And, there's warnings in front of the show and everything. So we're trying to make it clear what it kind of is.
This is why I miss the 80s. 80s, no warnings. You got none of that stuff.
Deal with it.
Start off with the last scene, call it a day.
Yeah, they're Walking Dead in the 80s going, 7 people had heart attacks watching this.
And then they put it on the poster. Yeah. that's their marketing campaign.
3 people died in the theater while watching this.
While watching it, wow. With Walking Dead coming out when it did, both the comic and the show, I feel like it was really kind of ahead of, if not creating, the zombie kind of resurgence from, there was the Dawn of the Dead back in the day, but like Walking Dead is modern zombies, and there's been many things since it.
I mean, not really. I don't mean to interrupt your question, but I do have to clarify that there was Zack Snyder's Dawn. Well, it was 28 days later, really, that kicked off the zombie resurgence. And then because of the popularity of that, they did the Dawn of the Dead remake with Zack Snyder that was written by James Gunn. And they did Land of the Dead, the 4th Romero zombie movie.
Was that the one where they were in the apartment complex?
Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Apartment complex.
I don't think I ever saw that one.
It's pretty good.
I saw a scene of it like a week ago where Dennis Hopper, he was like, "Oh, look over there," and then shoots a guy in the back of the head for no reason. I'm like, "I want
Sky flowers don't work no more, George."
Sorry to interrupt. It's great movie. There's cool stuff in there, but Walking Dead really, I think that and Lost ended, I think, like less than a year before Walking Dead started, and so I think it was like, okay, our survival on the island show ended. And there's been all these cool zombie movies that have got a lot of press. And then Walking Dead kind of debuted like at the perfect moment right at the end of that. And it was like, oh, cool. Like if I can't watch Lost, I guess I'll watch Walking Dead. And all these other zombie movies look kind of cool. So let's see what this is. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail your question, but I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't taking credit for the
Robert Kirkman, the man who invented zombies.
He invented
zombies.
We're
titling this episode.
Or at the very least, brought him back from the dead. But with Invincible, it's very different because obviously it's such a satire on and like a commentary on superheroes, and the comic itself is so great. But the show coming out so many years later now in 2021, do you think that this is the best time because people are educated now on superhero stuff, or is like, how is it going to live around so many different superhero properties that are now kind of just the most mainstream thing possible?
I mean, I think it's the perfect time because people are so educated and are aware of these, characters and universes and tropes. I think the tropes are very important. When Invincible debuted in 2003 as a comic book, the Marvel and DC universes had been around in comics for almost 100 years. Everybody was very well versed in, this is how a Batman story goes. This is how a Spider-Man story goes. You're going to fight Dr. Octopus like clockwork every, 20 issues, and he's going to get away, and, he'll have a new plan later, and, he's not going to die or anything. And if he does die, he'll come back later. So everybody kind of knows the language that superhero stories are told with. And we were able to play with that in the comic space. And now I think we're going to be able to play with that in a really cool way with the animated series, because the mainstream audience has now kind of been brought up to speed with the comic book audience with where they were back in 2003. So I think we couldn't have hit it a better time. I also think that, the pandemic hitting and taking all the Marvel movies off the schedule and, DC movies and things like that. I know we've got, WandaVision and Falcon and the Winter Soldier now, and Snyder Cut and stuff. So there's a lot of things happening like right there this month. But I think people are still starved for superhero content in a way that they weren't a year ago.
It's true, because you can get through the Snyder Cut in about 2 weeks, and then what do you watch after that?
Easy.
Slow play it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Chapter by chapter, you're fine. I guess then, you talk about, Invincible as the comic book dropping in 2003. Like, what is it like for you? And also tell me again, feel free to interrupt my question and call me stupid if you want. What is it like for you coming back to this world to create with it, but also create something you already created, right? It's like we were talking about it on one of the shows, I think on our Reacts, the first 3 episodes, where somebody brought up like, I wonder how different it's going to be. And Tim cited an interview you had done somewhere that was like, we have a great story and we want to tell that story. Like, is it hard to come back to this so many years later and try to tell the same thing, but try to change it different? And like, do you get in your own head about like, I kind of already did that, or I don't want to say it like that? Or is it a chance to redo things?
Well, I mean, it is a chance to redo things to a certain extent. And we started working on the animated series around the same time that I stopped writing the comic book. And so for me, it was somewhat therapeutic, because I never had a period where I was missing the characters. You grow very attached to characters if you, write them for, I think the comic book series lasted 16 years. It was fun kind of like diving back into the characters again with the animated series. And I was able to kind of look at it like a second draft, where I could go, okay, well, I was doing stories a certain way at the end of the Invincible series. And I feel like Invincible and Walking Dead 2, to a certain extent, I hope that you can see me grow as a writer as the series progresses. I think there's a lot of charm and a lot of really cool stuff to those early issues, but there's a lot of things that I, kind of wish I had done a little differently. And I definitely handle the characters in a, different way toward the end of the series. And so for me, it was kind of a way to try and take the, skill level that I had reached by the end of the comic book series and kind of bring it to the earlier issues and expand things that way. And I'm hoping that, diehard comic book fans, when they watch the episode, are like, oh, there's like a little bit of Nolan dialogue there that like hints at some stuff that's coming that Robert didn't know it was coming when he wrote the comic. And so this is kind of added in, and there's like a little bit more depth and a little bit more emotion to the scenes that I think he did have later on in the comic, but maybe, I feel we're kind of lacking earlier on in the comic. But I'm very critical of my own work, to be completely honest.
Well, you shouldn't be. You're great. You know that. We'll stop. I'll go back to making funny a little bit, but you're fantastic. You know that. Thank you so much for making.
Oh, please, I need this.
So I'm sure you're getting enough of it right now.
Well, that's the thing, is like, we've all loved this, and I've seen nothing but praise for Invincible so far. Well, very well deserved in my opinion. And the question that I've seen the most is, should I read the comic now, or should I just watch the show? And so, you being the creator, what do you recommend the best course of action for people that haven't read the comic yet to consume both the show and comic?
You don't have to read the comic book now if you'd rather just watch the show, but at least buy it right now.
Fair.
But no, I mean, I am nothing if not a comic book salesman. So by all means, like, you should go into a comic shop. If you like this series, even if you don't want to spoil the series and you don't want to buy Invincible, buy another comic book. But if you're watching this show and if you're watching Invincible, not this, whatever the hell this show is, but if you're watching Invincible and you aren't reading comic books, like, you're missing out, because a lot of the cool stuff that you love about Invincible is from comic books, and you should be reading comics. I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to read the comic book series, I don't think it's going to spoil very much, because like Walking Dead, there's certain things in the comic books that we're playing off of in the show. And so you might come at it fresh if you haven't read the comics, but you also might not get the way we're trying to misdirect you and the way that we're subverting your expectations if you haven't read the comics. Yeah. So it just depends on like what kind of experience you want to have. Because there will be times where you'll be sitting there, if you've read the comics, going, they're doing this now. This is crazy. Get ready. And then we don't do it. And you'll be like, oh, what the heck? Like, this is what's happening now. This is weird. And then there'll be other times where you're like, oh, they're doing this now. And you've experienced some of this already in the first 3 episodes. But there's, more of that kind of stuff coming.
Well, that was
go ahead.
That was my thing. I mean, as somebody who loves Invincible and has, read it many times over the years, like for that initial fight that ends episode 1, right? Like just when Omni-Man shows up and throws that first punch and they super speed out of the way, that's when I was like, oh shit, because that is so different. That whole fight then plays out in a completely different way than the original book did. And I was like, holy shit, like that's the kind of thing I'm getting out of it. And then obviously, like I texted you a little thing of like Seance Dog, which I totally fucking you know what I mean? Science Dog was the man for so long in Mark's obsession. Now it's Seance Dog and he's clearly Doctor Strange. I'm like, hell yeah, that's funny. But now, real quick, Robert.
Doctor Strange, what?
Have you heard of him? He's a master of the mystic arts. Yeah.
Why would you be so reductive in relation to Seance Dog that you would say that he's
exact same outfit, same cape, and
everything
everything
like that at all?
Oh, weird. Now, earlier you made a joke that you didn't know what our show's called. Is that right? Robert, let me tell you, this is the Kind of Funny podcast each and every week, twice a week, 4, sometimes 5 best friends gather around these microphones, each coming to bullshit with each other about whatever it is they want to bullshit. Today, we're talking about comics and Invincible and Walking Dead with Robert Kirkman. If you like that, you can head to patreon.com/kindoffunny, where you can watch us record the show live, just like Demetrius Newell is, Joe Mertens is, Matthew Lewis are. Of course, if you're on patreon.com/kindoffunny, you can ask us questions. You can give us your topics. You can get the show ad-free. You can get it with the exclusive post show we do twice a week. However, if you have no bucks to toss our way at patreon.com/kindoffunny, it's no big deal. Go to youtube.com/kindoffunny, roosterteeth.com, and podcast services around the globe each and every week to get a brand new episode. Hey, 2 episodes, why not? Some housekeeping for you. Thank you to our Patreon producers at Nanobiologist, aka Mick Abramson, and a round of applause. Mick engaged over the weekend. Very nice to see out there. DJ Kento, Devin Carter, Steve Powers, Ryan Trimble, Kieran O'Donnell, Joy, aka Joseph O'Yusef, Aaron Horan, Bill Bowie, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, Danny Rodriguez, and Rachel Gray. Today, we're brought to you by BetterHelp and HelloFresh, but I'll tell you about that later. Back to this show. One of the things I loved the most about it is, like, for me, somebody who knows the series so well, going back now, and this is something I talked about obviously with Tim and Nick, but like going back to this episode 1 is so interesting to go back and see Mark as a kid again, where I feel like you did such a great job with the Invincible comic series, right? Of going through so many issues, dozens and dozens of issues, and him growing, let alone, no spoilers, with how the, series ends and where it leaves his story. So to be able to go back here and have those moments, and again, to what you're talking about of like where the trash bag lands this time and how the trash bag is interacted with versus how it was in the first issues, I'm enjoying. But something I didn't expect, just because I didn't think about it, I guess, was having actors doing this, having VO with it, having Nolan get angry and start to lose it and then bring it back together while he's talking to his wife, right? And then seeing Mark do it later on as well, and being like what you're talking about, understanding a bit of like, oh man, they're teasing the temper, they're teasing what a Viltrumite really is, right? Like, sure, I dug that and didn't see that. Like, are you having fun writing those scripts and getting to tease those things in there and then seeing them come to life with somebody like J.K. Simmons?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that, it's amazing what actors bring to the table. If I could just make an obvious statement, it's something that is all, it's always a joy on The Walking Dead. With this, being in the recording booth, there were countless times where we would have a line of dialogue that we kind of, pictured going one way. And then as the actor would say it, you would think like, oh, there's so much like to this that we didn't really anticipate, we didn't really expect. There's a lot of really great character moments with Sandra where she just brings so much to the Debbie Grayson character that it starts informing scripts as you continue writing the series, and it's just a really great experience to take it from these words that float in word balloons on a page and bringing them into an actual actor's voice. It's nuts.
I want to bring in a question here. All right. This one comes from Lexus, who wrote into patreon.com/kindoffunny, just like you can, and says, what's up, Kind of Funny and Robert Kirkman? First, I have to say Invincible is fucking awesome. As this show is my first introduction to the series, I would like to preface my question with this. As a kid, up until now, I hated Superman. I always felt his lack of weakness made him uninteresting. Heroes with vulnerability and a need to overcome physical adversity were always my favorite. But there was a specific piece of dialogue between Mark and his mom that truly blew the lid open on what the appeal is for characters that are, quote unquote, invincible. When she tells Mark to go inside and he says, make me, her response is so spectacular. She says, does that make you feel powerful to know I can't physically make you do something? He then goes on to calm down and apologize. And it's there where the line in the sand becomes clear. It's the reservation of characters who are unstoppable and in their desire to appreciate and live amongst people less than them. I wonder if you, Robert, can elaborate on that scene and if that was the intended takeaway from that conversation. I was locked in after that and really hope the idea is explored more, especially with Omni-Man, who has no human in him and clearly has no love for other superheroes.
Gosh, a lot to unpack there. I think the main intent of that sequence was to show the distance that was growing between Debbie and Mark because of Mark getting his powers. Sure. The line of dialogue where she's like, it was you and I and your superhero father for so long, and now it's you and him, and I'm kind of left over here on the side. And a little bit about her, feeling left out, but this is a transition in Mark's life, and it was mostly about that. But I think that one thing that we really analyze with Invincible is that concept of nearly invincible characters and how they manage that. There will be many times in this season. I can think of at least one off the top of my head in this season where Invincible, and you guys have read the comics, know there's many, where Invincible doesn't understand the power level of the person he's fighting, and sometimes goes a little bit too far and is like, whoa, holy heck, I thought I was fighting somebody that was on par with me, and I just completely obliterated this guy, and I didn't really mean to. So, another aspect of it, though, is that, you have these characters that are super strong, like Superman, where it seems like, oh, this guy's going to win every fight. And, this can be kind of boring and there's really no conflict because they can handle almost anything. And it's fun to have the boxes where they exist in that aspect and explore that. But with Invincible, we can take them into bigger and bigger boxes where eventually in Invincible, you find him in places where he is very much outmatched and very much at a disadvantage. And you are, fairly certain he could die in that moment. And so having the world be so expansive that you can have your Superman-esque stories where he can do anything and have stories where he is very much, at a disadvantage is a lot of fun and gives us a lot of different things to, do storytelling wise and a lot of different areas to play in.
I know we're talking about something you're coming back to in writing that you've written before, but obviously you can twist and turn it however you want to. My question for you is, how do you write a comic? And I don't mean like the actual, panel by panel. I mean, like for you, is it sitting there and letting a story run? Or is it like you were just talking about of like, well, it's this interesting thing of, Debbie and him used to be, the normies versus the superpower. Like, is that a conversation that's happening organically in your head as you start thinking about things that are going to happen? Or is it that you want to get to that beat and then you get there and you write it?
I mean, there's a lot of different things that go into it. I think that, conflict is story. So you sit around trying to think of different kind of conflicts that you can have with the characters, whether they be physical or mental or large or small. And so scenes like Mark and Debbie having that conversation will pop into my head when I'm trying to fill space.
I gotta make a book here. I gotta give him something to do.
But I don't know. It's weird. Like you if you've done it a while, you start to see an architecture where you'll go, I need people to care more about this character here because they're going to be going here, and I need them to be worried when this is happening, and so I want to make them like them here. And it's kind of like just turning dials where you're like, okay, I want them to like them. I'm going to have them do some bad stuff, so I want them to like them less, so that they're okay with that transition for a while. But then I'll have them save a puppy later, and then that'll make them like them more. And it's just this like roller coaster of trying to manage reader and viewer opinions on things. But for comics specifically, and I think this helps me out a lot, I kind of, in my opinion, I feel like I'm working for the artist, and my job is to excite them and entertain them and give them things to draw that they're going to enjoy. And the reason for that is because I strongly believe that if the artist is having a good time, the reader will have a good time. And if I'm writing things that I think the artist will enjoy, I'm also having a good time. And so what that means is at every step of the way, when I'm writing a comic book, I'm trying to think, is this cool? Is this impressive? Is this startling? So, like I'll be writing a scene like the Debbie and Mark one. In a comic book, I'll try to make that one page because nobody wants to draw two normal people sitting on a porch talking. And if they're having a conversation, it's like, well, how do you punch that up? Well, have that moment where Debbie's like, oh, and Mark says like, make me, like there's like a physical confrontation that could happen between mother and son, and the son is superpowered. This is crazy. That's kind of an unexpected thing that would happen in that scene. You don't really expect things to go to that level. It kind of makes Mark seem like a bad guy. It makes you really identify with Debbie and respect her when she stands up to him immediately. So it's like kind of character building. But those kind of scenes happen because when I'm writing them, I'm like, this is boring. This is dull. This is a mother and son talking. No one wants to see this. I have to have something, to make this
dynamic in there.
to make it pop in some way so that it's cool. And I think that having that in my head at all times, helps you write good comics. I'm always trying to write cool action sequences, but also find some way to make that action sequence startling or unique or exciting in some way. And every now and then, if I'm writing the comic, I'll be like, well, I guess this one's not that unique, and I'll just have to move on because there is like a time basis to it. But I feel like if you're always trying to put that effort in, it definitely just kind of helps you along and helps you get into a mode of, trying to do cool stuff.
How's the creation process different? Invincible being a streaming show on Amazon versus Walking Dead being, on a cable network, being tied to run times and, I imagine certain amounts of swear words or X, Y, and Z, that type of thing. Yeah,
there's a lot of nuts and bolts stuff like that where when you're on a network, you have those kind of limitations there. My favorite is the on The Walking Dead, we could show the upper 1/3 of a buttock.
Oh yeah,
but we couldn't.
My favorite.
Show the bottom 2/3.
We have that same limitation on this podcast, so just in case you were thinking about it,
just show the whole ass, guys. Come on.
YouTube won't allow it, but they're fine with that top third.
So there's stuff like that. I think there's some storytelling limitations that are in broadcast TV where you write to commercial breaks and you have a 5-act structure, and so. You have to be aware of when those commercial breaks are going to happen, and you have to write to them so that the show isn't weird and you're just cutting at random points. On Invincible, we don't have that at all. We have a set amount of minutes, and even the set amount of minutes on Walking Dead, it has to be almost to the second. There's a very narrow margin of like, you can run over this by a few seconds. On Invincible, that's a number of minutes where it's like, as long as you're at this point or this point, like you're good. And I can't remember exactly what that range is, but I think they don't want an episode to be shorter than, I want to say 43 minutes, and they don't want it to be longer than like 52 or something. So yeah, but
that's a huge margin though, especially when you're dealing with animated, like that extra 8 minutes. You're like, oh, that's a couple more weeks of work we got to put in on this bad boy.
Yeah.
Were there talks about this being, because like I something leading into this that I kept hammering home is like, I'm shocked that we're getting a hour-long animated show week to week. Like I've never really seen that done before. Like, even in like anime type things, like those are still 22-minute episodes week to week.
It's one of the many times that I've been in a pretty big, important meeting and I throw something out off the top of my head. Like, I don't know, I think it'd be pretty cool if this was an hour-long animated show. And then they're like, yeah, that's cool. And then a couple weeks later, I'm like, that really happened? Because I threw that out. Can we do that? Is that okay? Like, I don't know. But yeah, I thought it would differentiate it from things because there are hour-long superhero shows and there are half-hour animated superhero shows. And so, and I also, even though this is animated, I wanted it to feel like a cable drama, and cable dramas are usually, 42 to 50 minutes or whatever. And so, I just thought it would be cool. Very difficult in animation, I must say.
Yeah.
Because then, our episodes lengthwise are kind of like 2 episodes of a normal animated series, but content-wise, our episodes are kind of like 3 animated episodes. So it was a somewhat difficult process, but the team rolled their sleeves up and was able to pull it off.
So when you pitched that, when you said off the top of your head hour, right? Did you have an idea of where you wanted that natural first season to go? And if they had said, hey, we want to do 30-minute or 22-minute episodes, were you going to go like, hey, we'll do more of them? Or how do you scale back where you want to end with the actual comic run?
Yeah, luckily that never came up. Once we had the episode length and the season length pretty much decided, we had a set plan for what the story was going to be for the first season, and there was never any discussion of varying that. If they had, I would have tried to figure out a way to, we probably would have just cut stuff here and there to tell like the same basic story, because when the first season is kind of completed, you'll be like, oh yeah, this is kind of what they should have covered in the first season. We wanted to be true to that.
Whose idea was it?
I've said too much. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's okay.
While we're here, before you get to your idea, I just want to know, is your intent to do the entire run of the comic? Me and Kevin talk about this all the time, or we hope and dream that it is. But do you think that's actually going to happen?
I mean, that is the hope. Yeah. I've said this before. I kind of regret it because I did get a little play. I think it'd be really cool to go beyond the comic if the show was super successful.
My God. Don't fucking say that, Robert. Don't fucking say that.
Whoa.
Kevin coming off the bench.
With that, obviously the critical reception has been fantastic, but if you can talk about it, what has been the reception in terms of the success of the show?
It's performing very strongly, I believe, are the words I've gotten. Like they
don't have
specifics, but it's doing very well. I don't know what that means.
So like Jeff Bezos hasn't driven a brand new Range Rover to your house yet or anything like that?
No, but my paper towels are coming super fast lately.
You're getting one day Amazon Prime.
That's worth its weight in gold right there these days. Still waiting.
I click buy and it's already there.
We thought you might want this, Robert. Here you go. Great job. Nick, I cut you off. I'm sorry. You were going to ask.
I was just going to ask you about input on casting and things like that. Cause one of the standout for me, the performances was Jason Mitsoukis, who I just want to know who do I have to thank for that? Who cast him in this?
Jason is a buddy of mine. How did I meet him? I met him at SNL one year. Okay. A long time ago. And so we've talked a bunch, and he's hosted panels for me at Comic-Con and stuff, only when Greg's not available.
Thank you.
And it's
Are you want people to come?
Are we sure it's not the other way around on that?
But Jason's casting wasn't, I don't know if I've ever told him this, but it wasn't a matter of like, it wasn't a matter of like, are we going to cast him? It was, who is he going to play? Because I know that he, not only being a buddy, but he also is a big fan of Invincible, aside from being awesome in literally everything he's ever done.
Yeah.
And so I knew I wanted him to be a part of this, in some way. And then him being Rexplode was just absolutely perfect.
It's perfect.
Yeah. Kevin and I were talking about that the other day, Kev, where you were like, it hit the first time and he's like, oh, it's Jason. And he's like, I don't, and then by the end, you're like, oh, like the end of the first sentence, you're like, okay, no, this is actually perfect. Cause
I don't for his attitude.
I never sat around to think about how the characters would sound, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? I read it and I knew.
I didn't either, to be honest, which is, I guess, somewhat odd, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's such, it was the other day where I forget what show we were on. Somebody asked like, does the voice in your head sound like you? And it was that stop of the question of just like, well, I don't know. Like, I've never attached a voice to the things I think, you know what I mean? And it's the same thing for a comic book where there's so many times I read the page and like, I feel like I know those characters and I understand who they are, their motivations, everything else, but I don't sit there and have it play out like a play in my head. So when we got there, and it was Rex, it was like, oh, I as soon as it started, I turned to my wife. I'm like, oh, it's the pillow fucker from Big Mouth. And she's like, oh, it is him. And then, but it was like, he got away from that, that young energy so quickly that it was just like, this is Rex and this doesn't make sense for who this character is. Yeah.
With the voice cast you have that is utterly insane, do you think that when you're writing next season, if that were to happen, do you think that you might change the way that you write some of those characters to fit the new character that the voice is bringing to it?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I think so. I think that, writing Rex will be a lot different, having gotten, intimately familiar with how Jason portrays him. And I think there's definitely characters. I mean, Debbie Grayson, for instance, I think the way Sandra has done all of her scenes and the way she's kind of embodied that character is definitely going to, help us figure out how we're going to, use her if there were to be a season 2. No official confirmation as of yet, unfortunately.
I like how Greg tried to slide that in. I'm like, this is why he doesn't drink with you, Greg. This is why.
I just want to, ask the question. It's out there. It's on the cable now. So yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that makes sense. I mean, like that was the thing of, again, no spoilers, but knowing where the characters went in the comics, seeing the cast you have and like having those, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to see how this character will do X. You know what I mean? Of like, if you stay true or if you stay on target with what you've been before, it'll be interesting to see, how somebody like Sandra is Debbie 2 seasons from now, 3 seasons from now, as that continues to go, or just, I'm guessing I know where you end this season, but I don't fully know, obviously. So I'm excited.
You might not know.
Maybe I
might think you know. You might be wrong. You might be right.
Damn, a lot of options. Could be a lot of options out there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably wrong.
I'm just filling time, guys. I'm just filling time.
This is one of this, like when you're in the conversation, where this is boring in the book, but I just got to do it. Just this podcast. I'm just going to power through it. Just talk. Say maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. Samuel Griffin had a question in the same vein as what we're talking about, though, and I want to get back to it because you talked about Jason. Samuel Griffin wrote into patreon.com/kindafunny and said, "Hi, Kinda Funny crew and special guest Robert Kirkman. I have a quick question for you, Robert. How much input did you have in the overall casting for Invincible? I noticed watching the show, it's at times sometimes a mini Walking Dead reunion. I loving my first experience with the Invincible story. I can't wait to see where this goes." So, like, again, for people who are in the business, right? You're in the boardroom. You're like, maybe we make it 40 minutes. They're like, great idea, Robin. You're like, fuck. Like, is it the same thing? Like, is your word just gold? Where you're like, we got to put Jason in, and like, yes, sir, right away, sir. We'll put him right in there. And then you're like, well, I like Steven. I like all these other people from Walking Dead.
Well,
Robert,
I guess
before you answer, Robert, he's going to ask for a role in season 2.
I want you to know I already did that before when season 1 got announced and I didn't get it. So we learned that doesn't work. I'm not barking up the tree again.
Listen, you had the part. You had the part. It was yours. And then Seth Rogen called and we were like, fuck Greg Miller. I do apologize.
The
first time. I'm sorry.
I can't be mad about that. I understand that. And I respect
right?
that. I understand.
I mean, come on. You would have made that decision had it been yours to make. Correct?
Yeah. Well, I think it was on the morning show when we were like, hey, we'll do a joke thing where I do that read. And so we read lines of the aliens dialogue. And as they were coming out of my mouth, I was like, this is bad. This is real bad. And I shouldn't have this role. And I'm glad you gave it to Seth Rogen.
Yeah. I'm not going to say you make smart choices in your life, but I think the material speaks for itself. So we'll just leave it at that. So I interrupted you, Robert. Sorry about that.
No, to answer the question, I'll say that, in my capacity as executive producer on the show, I mean, the executive producers are the ones that decide who gets cast. So yeah, I mean, I was able to say Mantzoukas, that's the one. Now, that said, if you want to email me or text me about getting a role on Invincible, I can't help you. I have no power whatsoever. It's really weird. But
we're getting on the Kirkman train too late. Remember, he got fucking Gary Whitta in Walking Dead. Ugh. You know what I mean? It's something else he lauds over my head all the time.
Oh, he was great. But
Gary was in Walking Dead. When was Gary?
Gary was a zombie in the pilot of Walking Dead.
Did you have to do much makeup for him, or did you just say, hey, just act British?
You know what? You look good. Go.
You're fine.
Go on
Get
out there,
you got that dry British sense of humor. You're fine. Get out there.
We love Gary.
Tons of makeup. It was very difficult to make him look like a zombie because he's so adorable. But yeah, no, the Walking Dead stunt casting, as I like to call it, with the Guardians of the Globe. We're spoiling the first 3 episodes. Those characters were created to die. Like I knew that they were going to die, when I introduced them into the comics, and I knew that this was going to happen at the end of the first episode. And I just thought it would be real funny if it was a bunch of Walking Dead actors, because those people tend to die on Walking Dead at some point. Some of them haven't yet. And then there are guys like Ross Marquand and Kari Payton. Kari Payton is a extremely talented, very popular voice artist, and getting to know him over the course of Walking Dead, he's just a fantastic dude. And if you have an in with a voice guy that's that talented that you can get into your show, like you're definitely gonna call in that favor. And so I feel really fortunate to have him on the show. And Ross is playing a few different characters, which is always pretty cool.
Is there anyone that you're shocked you got?
I mean, almost everyone, to be completely honest. Like, I was like, Mark Hamill? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's great. I mean, we worked with Linda LaMontagne, our casting director, and she would just be like, so I'm thinking Mahershala Ali for Titan. And we would be like, what?
Sure.
Really?
Sure.
Okay.
For the cartoon? Yeah.
I mean, as far as Mark Hamill's concerned, I feel like you can't do a good animated property without including Mark Hamill.
He's the seal of approval, right? Yeah.
He is that for sure.
Absolutely. And he was just an absolute dream to work with. It was like, well, there's Mark Hamill. He's in a room with me.
Was that your first time interacting with him, or?
It really was. Yeah. I mean, I had walked past him a few times at conventions, but I'd never really bothered to bug him or anything. So I had been in his presence, not that he was aware of it, if I could make it as creepy as possible.
Yeah.
But no, when he came in for the recording session, and that was the first time I got to meet him. Which
we saw William Shatner eating lunch one time at Kansas City Comic-Con, and we all lost our shit. So I can't even imagine with Mark Hamill sitting there. Did you?
What was he eating? What was William Shatner eating?
I can't remember. Did you guys?
It was the barbecue place. Remember?
It was barbecue.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh,
it was so good in Kansas City. No.
Remember what happened, guys? So we staked out the table. We all got up to go get the barbecue, and I think it was me and Kevin came back and we looked over. Was like, "Is that William Shatner sitting at our table?" And then we're like, "We got to sit at a different table. We can't sit at that table anymore."
I had to go get my stuff. I was right next to him with making no eye contact because I didn't want to disturb him. I'm sure he's a friendly guy. It's just, he's doing his thing. I don't want him being like.
Yeah, Kevin was like, "I loved you. I loved you in Wrath of Khan." Okay. So at any point do you nerd out when you're working with these people, or do you just try to keep it professional as possible?
I feel like I haven't really talked about this a lot. I've been really, really fortunate in that I absolutely worshipped the Image Comics founders as a child. And I was able to meet them on my way up in comics and befriend a lot of them. And I hang out with, Rob Liefeld quite frequently pre-pandemic. And it's somewhat awkward to be like, this is like a buddy of mine that we hang out and we do things. And I had posters of his drawings on my wall as a child, and so, but I've had a lot of interactions where people that I've just looked up to my entire life, and I'm just like suddenly hanging out with them. And so I'm freaking out inside constantly in almost all of these recording sessions, and I hope I hide it well. There are times when I don't. I know the Michael Dorn session, I was just like, I can't believe I'm standing in front of Worf right now.
That would. Oh my specifically, God. I think it'd be okay until his voice came out, and then I'd be like, "This is the coolest thing ever."
Because the best thing, though, and I'm sorry, he's so great. But we're talking to him, and he's like, "So Battle Beast, okay? Tell me about this character. What's he like?" And I'm like, "He's kind of like a guy that's like real focused on war and
Red
fighting.
For War,
and he's like." Yeah, and I'm like, he's like a tough guy.
Doesn't really understand human emotions that well.
Basically. And so I'm going through all these things, and he goes, "You want me to just do my Worf voice?"
Yeah. Let's please.
And I go, I would never in a million years ask you to do that. But if you want to do that, that'd be great.
if that's your take on it, go for it. That's
whenever
amazing.
you're inspired, however you feel, whatever you want to get out there and do.
It was spectacular.
That's awesome.
So then, do you have these through the looking glass moments? Because you're talking about the people, being in the room, coming up with the people or being in the room with the people you respected and nerded out for coming up. But now I have to imagine that happens to you all the time. Right? When you go to Comic-Con, you've ascended to a different level. you're Robert fucking Kirkman. Like, and I mean, and that's saying something because I remember like getting, having back in college, senior year, this guy, Bob Britton, handed me The Walking Dead. Like, you love zombies. Here are these first 2 trades of this thing. And then at the back, the little doodle of you that was like, buy my other books. And it was like Battle Pope. And I was like, oh, cool. And I remember you were coming to town in Missouri for something and I couldn't go. I was like, oh, whatever. And my friend went, and he's like,
yeah, that's funny. I remember doing that signing in Missouri.
And so it was like this thing of just like, you were even then like it was cool that you were a comic creator, but I mean like now you're like behind these gigantic entertainment properties. Like people must lose their shit to meet you all the time.
Yeah, and I just look at them and I go, look, guys, I'm a big deal. Can you please leave me alone?
Yeah,
I'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, I do that. I do
like DA, get rid of these people. Take them out of the room.
No, I don't know. I mean, I've spent so many hours behind a table at a convention watching people walk past and not pay me any attention whatsoever.
Yeah.
I hope that I will always appreciate anyone being in any way interested in me, in any kind of creative way. So I try to be nice to people unless I know them. If I know them, I'm very mean to them, which I guess is my sense of humor. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a weird person, but that is how I show that I like people.
That's our thing.
Fit in with us very well.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Like I joked around on that IGN stream where I sent in the question for you, but that's still one of my most cherished Comic-Con memories is like we finished the Skybound Lounge. We had been hosting for like a couple hours or whatever. We were walking back to the convention and you passed me on a golf cart. And I don't remember what the fuck you said, but it was so mean. And you just rolled by in front of all these people. I was like, that's Robert. That's how we talk to each other.
That's great. That's great.
But no, if you've ever come to my table for an autograph at a convention and I look at you and I go, oh, you again? It's because I remember you and I like you.
Do you think back to those early days and does any part of you miss a simpler life when you could just go and people were like, "We love your art," and not necessarily want to stalk you on the street?
I mean, a little bit, and I will say that it like happens in waves. Like when I was on Talking Dead constantly. And The Walking Dead was kind of at its like absolute peak, like seasons 4, 5, and 6. Going to cons were a real bummer. There was a New York Comic-Con where I like to go and, I like to buy Transformers toys and I like to look at back issues. And so I left the booth and this is a great story. I don't think I've ever told this publicly. So I step out of the Image booth and usually I can walk a good like 5 minutes before I get stopped. And then I'll, have like a couple of photos, maybe sign a couple of books, and then I'll walk another 5 minutes and get stopped. And that's fine. That's no big deal. I could not take 2 or 3 steps. And then I would have 20 people around me, like hounding me, like, oh, can you sign this book? Can you do this? Which is all fine. And, sometimes it's hard to find me. And if you've come to New York to get an autograph from me, like, please stop me and bug me. I'm happy to sign whatever. So I'd stand there and sign books for like 20 people. And then I would take like 5 steps after I got rid of that crowd and another crowd would form. And I think it took me an hour to go from like 5 booths worth of walking. And I was trying to get to Artist Alley to just like check out people I know and stuff. And I just kind of threw up my hands and I was like, I can't do this. I'm out. And so I just walked out of the front of the convention center because I think I had like a good 4 or 5 hours free, which rarely happens.
It's like the start of an airplane. You're pushing people over, knocking them out as they come. Please, autograph.
No, I pivoted and I started walking toward the exit, and I would get stopped. But I was trying to leave at that point, and I got to like a block away from the con, and I was like, I don't know what to do, and I was real sad. I was like, I'm not able to go to the booths and do the things. This really sucks. And so I got on my phone, and the second Machete movie, I think it was called Machete Kills, was playing like a couple blocks over. And I was like, screw this. I'm going to see Machete Kills. And so I start walking, and Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time, is walking out of a bodega. And I go, and I look at him and I go, hey, you having trouble walking the floor? And he goes, yeah, man, it really sucks. I can't go anywhere without people bugging me. And I go, you want to go watch Machete Kills? And he goes, yeah, I do.
That's awesome. So that's amazing.
Pendleton Ward and I went down the street and watched Machete Kills before we went back to the convention. It was super awesome.
Who was it that like 2 years ago, I forget which celebrity, and Greg, you'll remember, was like, I want to walk the floor. So they dressed in a mask of themselves to go and just walk around. Was it Hugh Jackman?
I know Bryan Cranston did that.
Oh, that was Bryan Cranston. That's what I was thinking of.
Andrew Garfield's done it too.
Maybe that's what you need to do from now on, is just dress as yourself, but with a Hugh mask on there. You can always dress like me, and then no one will recognize you. That'll be perfect.
Shave the beard. fit right in. Nobody will be looking for you.
Go mustache.
And I wouldn't have the
be
beard.
a Viltrumite.
Yeah,
it takes at least 2 days to grow this thing back.
I'm sure. Yeah, you're a very rugged Kentucky man. That's why it's poof, a glass of bourbon. God, there it is. It's right back where it needs to be.
So you've had this episode is brought to you by HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get fresh, pre-measured ingredients and mouth-watering seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. HelloFresh lets you skip those trips to the grocery store and makes home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. And that's why it's America's #1 meal kit. HelloFresh cuts out stressful meal planning and grocery store trips so you can enjoy cooking and get dinner on the table in about 30 minutes or less. A lot of people at Kinda Funny have been using HelloFresh, including Kevin. Isn't that right?
Yep. And I love it.
What do you love most about HelloFresh, Kev?
So we do the vegetarian options because Paul is a vegetarian. And I can't believe how many different vegetarian foods I'm eating that are phenomenal. There's so many.
That's great. And that's the whole thing. HelloFresh gives you a ton of options based on your diet, based on what type of food you're looking for. They offer the flexibility you need with customizable orders every week. You can easily change your delivery days or food preferences and skip a week, whatever you need. So you can go to HelloFresh.com/morning12 and use code morning12 for 12 free meals, including free shipping. That's HelloFresh.com/morning12. Next up, I want to give a shout out to BetterHelp, our new sponsor, BetterHelp Online Therapy. A lot of us take care of our bodies, but 2020 and 2021 have been tough. So you might also want to be taking care of your minds. I mean, definitely, you 100% do. It's been really rough. There's a misunderstanding of what therapy is. It can be whatever you need it to be, whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be sitting around talking about your feelings. A lot of people battle with their temper or their stress and it's about to kill them, or they have depression, anxiety, PTSD. The list goes on. If this is you, you can use therapy to get some tools that help make life easier. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. And that's great. I know a lot of people have a feeling that one way or another about this type of stuff, and I love that this kind of gives you the options to do it at your own pace and so that you feel comfortable. We're always talking Kinda Funny about how important mental health is, and this is a great way, great couple steps that you could be taking to deal with it. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. Join the millions of people who are seeing what therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp, and all of you listeners can get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/morning. That's BetterHelp.com/morning. betterhelp.com/morning. Obviously, comics, you've had the animated show now, you had Walking Dead, like live action TV show. The Invincible movie, correct me if I'm wrong, is that going to be the first time one of your projects is in a theater, like wide release?
Yeah. At this point, I would have to think that of the movies that I'm circling of possibly getting out, that Invincible won't be the first one to come out, but it might be. But yeah, I have not had a movie in theaters yet. Which
is that something that you're looking forward to as much as I imagine you would be?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like if this happens, if this doesn't happen, I will die unfulfilled. It's still like, oh my God, like that would be amazing if that happened. It'd be very exciting, but it's not something that. I don't know. I feel like I'm not yet in the like, okay, this is definitely going to happen. This has to happen kind of mindset. I'm still very much hopeful, but I try not to pin too much hope on these things that aren't necessarily set in stone yet.
Yeah. What is the status that you could talk about of the Invincible movie? Because like I will say it's crazy that for the last 6 years it feels like we're like, oh man, there's going to be an Invincible movie, or it's a TV show, or it's animated, it's not animated, all this stuff. The fact that we're actually watching the show now and it's real is like unbelievable to me. But what is the status of the movie now?
The status of the movie is that it is in development.
Cool.
So if now that the show is out, in addition to the comic, how are you thinking of the movie? Like, let's say it does happen and gets through development. Like, how are you going to treat that differently than the show?
I mean, it's still a little early for me to be able to talk about. All I can really say is that it will be different. It'll obviously be based on the same comics that the show is based on, but it will possibly adapt certain parts of the comic that we're not really focusing on. It will take a different kind of slant to how we're adapting the story to give it a different kind of, feel. We know what we're doing. and we know how it will be different. But I can't really talk about it.
Sure, fair.
Everyone will be played by a dog in the movie.
Damn it, I knew it was going to be.
It's going to be super cool.
You talk about the different movies circling. You talk about like not getting your hopes attached to anything in particular. Expanding that out, is that why you do so much? Is that you can never be heartbroken because you're so busy? I can't imagine what your day looks like because you just have so many things going and you're spinning so many plates, let alone like your projects, the things you're working, the things you're writing, then what Skybound itself is doing. And as Skybound continues to grow and go nuts, whether it be games or just in general, what they're up to, like how do you fit it all into the same 24 hours we have? Because I play games at some point and don't look at anything.
Well, I am a broken person with a deep, dark hole inside of me that will never be filled. But all joking aside,
jokes,
No, I don't know. I feel like I have a lot of opportunity, and it would be disrespectful for me not to accept those opportunities and try and do cool stuff with them. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's it's what I would do for a hobby. Doing all this stuff, and it's something that is fun more than anything else. And so the time that I would have spent playing more video games, or I don't know, putting little model sailboats in bottles. I don't know what people do for fun.
That's what Nick does.
So far in my 41 years, I've gotten through one. So if you want it, I'll send it to you.
Please.
No, but I mean,
that would be amazing.
I feel like we are fortunate, obviously on a smaller scale, to be in the same spot, right? Where we're doing a podcast. This is it's a blast so far, specifically when you make fun of Greg. So if you want to do more of that, that's fun for me. But obviously, like I think we feel a little bit of the same thing too, where, we're fortunate to be able to do this for a living. And I would do this no matter what. Like we used to do this when we had a better, I shouldn't say better job, but it's a better job. We still did this.
So why only 2 days? Why only 2 episodes a week, guys?
There's like 3 other shows a day.
Yeah, we do like 15 shows. So yeah, this one's 2. We do another show called In Review that you're more than welcome to do a few with us if you want. Where we
come in review. Yeah, come in and come be on Invincible Reacts. I want your unbiased opinion to our reactions. Awesome. You guys are wrong. I know you didn't get this part of the, why are you asking that? That was explained in the episode, you idiots. Definitely what happened.
What are you watching right now, if anything?
I'm watching, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm enjoying that.
What do you think of WandaVision?
I liked it a lot. I think
too.
Both of those shows are really spectacular in that they're making you love those characters in ways that you never would have when they just appeared in movies. Giving you that time to get to know them, I think is really cool. And when they show up in a movie later, like when Scarlet Witch shows up in Doctor Strange 2, you're going to be like, oh my God, it's Scarlet Witch. And you'll be like so much more invested in her character than you were when she, showed up in all those other movies. And so I really love those shows for that. I don't know. I mean, it's not on right now, but my favorite thing in the world is The Mandalorian. I just absolutely love that show. Every minute.
Let me ask you, because it's not my favorite show, and I'll say that. What draws you to the Mandalorian? I know, it's fair. I've been called worse by most people on this podcast. What draws you to that? Because
you're now my least favorite. Greg, you're number 2.
Woo! Fair.
Go Tim.
Does Tim just because he's wearing a leather jacket? Is that why? Because he's shiny right now?
Boy.
Yeah.
The thing about the Mandalorian that I find that's to be candid, that's different than a lot of the stuff you do is like I just don't see a deep depth of character development and storytelling in the Mandalorian. But people always give me the feedback they're like they like just the experience of it. And I'm just curious what draws you to that as being like a favorite of yours.
Well, I think I love the bite-sized installments, and I think that's the way I would frame it. There are some character developments, and I think there's to Mando's character. There's like some hints of his past and different things that kind of creep into the story from time to time that give you a more like informed sense of who he is as a person. But I like the episodic nature. I think that every now and then you like to be able to just sit back and watch a show where you get a story with a beginning, middle, and an end in every episode. I think that cable dramas are spectacular, but they've become so popular. It's like every single show, including Invincible, which is spectacular. Please go out and watch Invincible.
Great show.
And Walking Dead too. Like they're still out there. Watch those shows. But yeah, I like a nice show that just kind of has like a contained story. But I think my favorite aspect of it is how well they do blatant fan service.
Just that might be my least favorite aspect of it. But sorry, continue. I cut you off.
But Mandalorian is the one thing out there that gives you exactly what you could have ever wanted. Like you're watching the first season, and you're like, man, I wish Boba Fett would show up. That'd be really cool. And then it's like, well, here's Boba Fett. Look at that. He's awesome. And then when is it? Golly, I feel like an idiot. I'm totally blanking on everyone's name.
Luke Skywalker.
No, good Lord. Ahsoka Tano. There we go.
Tano, yeah.
I'm glad I held out for it. I was really going to lose some cred, but
this guy doesn't know Star Wars.
When she says there's not a lot of Jedis out there, and you're sitting there going, "Well, are they saying they're going to put Luke Skywalker in this show? Because they never in a million years would put Luke Skywalker in this show." And then the last episode, Luke Skywalker shows up, and you're like, "Oh God!" Like it's exactly what I wanted, and it's happening. Like this is insane. It's nice to have a show that does that. And I like to think about different things that they might do in season 3, and it's like, well, that would never work out. And then I'm like, oh, that's probably going to happen. But like now I'm just like, when does Thrawn show up? Like I'm sure Grand Admiral Thrawn is going to be the main villain of season 3, and he's going to be played by some awesome actor. And that's ridiculous fan service, but I think it's done in a way that's spectacular. Plus the show, they're spending like $1 billion on it. It looks spectacular. So I don't know. I don't, if you don't enjoy that show, you have no soul.
Fair.
And Nick.
I mean, we all know this about me already. I think there's too much coffee.
Yeah. Just calm down, stop being so smart and enjoy something, for God's sake.
No, but here's the thing, real talk though, there's a little bit of a trend happening where a lot of storytellers, instead of writing the story that they might want to write and surprise you with, they're doing fan service. And I'm not going to point to anything that may have come out in HBO Max lately that's 4 hours long, but is that a trend that you see happening, and does that concern you at all?
I mean, if it's a trend, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's not like everything is going to start going to that, but I think having things that are designed to excite people and give people what they want isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think that, not naming names, but I mean, there are shows out there where the fan buildup damages the show. WandaVision, I guess, is a perfect example of this, where all the online chatter is like, oh man, Mephisto's going to be in this. And, we're going to see Reed Richards and all this other stuff. Yeah. Oh, this is how they're going to bring the X-Men into the MCU. And it's like, there's nothing about that show that like promised you those things. It's just little lines of dialogue that you're hinting at to. Well, the Quicksilver thing maybe to a little bit. Okay, sure. But to
that degree though, right? They hit you with that, and you go, oh great, that to me was fan service, and they go, nope, just kidding. And so that's kind of where I'm a little bit more drawn to what Marvel's doing, is because they are giving you kind of what you want, but then they're quick to either pull the rug out from underneath you or say, nope, that's not what you wanted. This is what you want. Now you want this, which I felt like they're doing a little bit better and a little more delicately with WandaVision and with the Falcon and Winter Soldier. And again, that's not to say the Falcon Winter Soldier isn't fan service, because that would be stupid not, to say that as well. Yeah. But
I think what you have to do as a storyteller is you have to deliver. And so if you're not going to give fans, quote unquote, what they want, you have to give them something better, which says, oh, this is actually what you wanted, but you're not the writers on this. You're not the creators behind this. So you didn't know exactly what you wanted. And now we're telling you, and it's spectacular. That's what you want to do in success. If The Mandalorian, gave you Boba Fett and gave you Luke Skywalker and it sucked, well, that would be like the worst thing ever, because they're giving you what you want and it's not meeting your expectations. I think when it meets your expectations, that's what makes it okay. If it doesn't meet your expectations, then I'm like, oh, you're wasting my time. This is no good.
Yeah.
So you're saying there's no meeting my expectations.
I mean, I think that's true at this point with Mandalorian, with Nick, but I think season 2 was vastly superior to season 1 because of all this. And so much of it was because season 1 was kind of a build like of a cast of characters that were like, I don't want you. I want Luke Skywalker and I want Ahsoka and I want whatever. And then season 2 was like, okay, we're getting those characters, but they're being met by these characters from season 1 that now we're like, somehow we watch season 2 and we're like, oh, Bill Burr's character is my favorite now.
Well, see, that,
and like,
that's what I was
crazy.
Gonna say. So I did come around on season 2. I actually enjoy season 2 a lot more than season 1. And
I love how he's changing his story now.
Well, it wasn't until the Bill Burr
flip flop,
episode.
Robert. Now I'm on your side, Robert. He does suck. Worst person on the podcast.
I still don't love the show, but I did enjoy season 2 a lot more than season 1. And I think it was because of that Bill Burr episode, because there was sort of a that to me is what I think like the kind of storytelling I like, right? Which is something that Invincible does a lot, which is taking a character and putting them in a moral conundrum of like, what's you have to do to like your options for solving this problem are terrible. So pick the lesser of the two evils. And in that specific one, I love that episode where it was like, you're never supposed to take off your helmet, but look what now that's the thing you have to do because there's something greater at stake. And so you have to compromise your morals for the overall, I mean, I just thought that's the kind of storytelling that draws me to that. Not necessarily seeing someone in the Boba Fett armor, albeit it's cool, but that's to me, that's what I worry that people are going to go, well, people really love Boba Fett armor, so let's just put Boba Fett armor everywhere. And let's forego those wonderful moments where Bill frickin' Burr, who's one of my favorite comics on the planet, is like, yeah, take that damn helmet off, didn't you? Yeah, don't judge me. Don't sit there and judge me in your shiny, cool armor.
Well, I think you're admitting that the show that you want more of that from is at least giving you some of that.
It is.
Yeah. But I don't know. As I get older, I do find myself going, I just want to sit back on a couch and watch explosions every now and then. When I was younger, it was like, I need more challenge from my entertainment. And now I'm just like, just let me turn my brain off for half an hour.
Well, I feel like it's tough, though, because especially with Star Wars, right? There's so much that you bring into, well, I was going to say the theater, but I guess you bring into your living room when you fire up a Star Wars show that you maybe don't with WandaVision. And it's no disrespect to WandaVision or to those characters, but I still think that as a child of the 80s, Star Wars just has this maybe unhittable mark that I want it to hit every single time. And that might just be an unrealistic expectation.
I think Marvel has that more than anything now, right? Like, especially straight out of Endgame. Like, we're dealing with 2 decades at least of Star Wars that at best is, divisive.
At worst, this is Jar Jar Binks.
Yeah. But I mean, it's like people love, people hate, but there's like not a consensus. Whereas like, at least with like MCU, especially where we're at now, it's like, there's a consensus and it's like the ability to be let down by it is like so much easier and so close to just them failing at any given moment. But it's like, there's a level of trust there where I feel like with Star Wars, it's a little bit more trepidation going into the 11 projects they've announced.
Just a few.
I can't wait for all of them.
Me too. Yeah, I love it all.
Oh, we'll be watching and reacting to all of them. Don't worry about that part.
Have you ever, hypothetical, they go, we want you to do a run of this or one of these. Would you do it?
I mean, I would definitely be tempted, but no. I mean, I was briefly in the Transformers room for they did a Transformers writers room for the movies before the Bumblebee movie and before the last Michael Bay movie. And they asked, and I was like, well, I love Transformers, so I'm going to do this. And I ended up having to leave because I had to get throat surgery, which was not fun. But that's why I left. But before I left, I was kind of in the room going, well, I mean, I love Transformers so much. I don't know if I can do this right. Like when you have an affinity for something at that level, it holds you back to a certain extent. You're not willing to roll your sleeves up and break the toys and kind of get in there. And it's hard for me to bring my own storyteller's voice to the story when I've built up the stories that have come before to the degree that I just want to kind of do stuff that's just like that. And so I feel like I learned my lesson there. And so no matter how much I would want to do something like that, I feel like I'm much better off doing my own stuff.
What would be your Transformers story?
It's more fun. It's more, I was sitting there going, I want to see Michael Bay's Unicron. Like I want to see Hot Rod. I just want to see the 1986 movie, like through Michael Bay's lens. I was like, I want them to, I want to try and talk Michael Bay into coming to Comic-Con 2 years from now with a 3-minute teaser for his next Transformers movie. And it's just a shot for shot remake of the opening 3 minutes of the 1986 Transformers movie.
That would be unbelievable.
And like, as a fan, I was like, I would literally melt if I ever saw that. Like, that would be the craziest. Just Unicron, like eating that planet where those scientists have the beakers that are shaking and
with the best crunch sound of all time, the cartoony ass, like,
but it's he's just, but Unicron's just way too big to be able to do the patented Michael Bay camera circles around him over and over again until one of us throws up. But I think he could have made it work.
You talk about this,
hurt you, Nick. Where's the fun in your soul?
The 90s and the early 2000s. That's why
be a detractor.
That's how
the prequels, man. The
Don't
prequels. They did it to me.
The question then I want to turn it on a little bit on you, and for people maybe who haven't read your books, Robert, like when usually you do have a pivotal death or end one of the series or talk about it, you put these letters in there often, not always, but often talking about the process for you and stuff. And so like, you're talking about like going into Transformers and then be like, oh man, I just love this so much. It's hard to do this and live up to that expectation. How do you get around that with yourself then, where you're writing and I mean, spoilers for The Walking Dead, you're going to kill Glenn, right? Like, that you want to do that. I think in that one for that issue, right? I think there was a letter talking about it. You knew that was the way. And maybe even for the end of Walking Dead, which I won't spoil, but there was ones in there, like you knew this moment was coming. You delayed it at one point, but you knew, like, do you have that, like, angel on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder conversation of like, maybe I should let him stick around longer. Maybe I shouldn't do this to this character.
Well, there's no affinity for my own stories. So, while I learn to love the characters, not learn to love, I grow close to the characters as I write them. And I care for them almost like they're real people, at the risk of sounding somewhat psychotic. So, when I do kill a character in anything that I'm doing, it's very upsetting. I talked about, I won't spoil which character, but like I was plotting the issue where this character died and I started like tearing up like on an airplane. I had my notepad out and I was like looking around, I'm like, oh, is anybody seeing this? Like, oh God, this is no good. So I feel that, but as far as any kind of, am I going to mess this up if I do this? I'm very much of the mind of that the thing I'm doing is what it is. When Walking Dead happened as a TV show, I got really concerned with the popularity of the show and the fact that there was a show affecting the comic book, because I felt like the show happened and the show was popular because of what I was doing in the comic book. And I wasn't doing the comic book with anything like that in mind. There was a purity to what I was doing. And I didn't want to mess with that, because I felt like if I messed with that, then the whole thing would collapse and then, things wouldn't go well and it would be bad. And so I tried to put that kind of stuff out of my head. And so I'd be writing the comic book and I would say, it'd be really cool if there was a tiger, like guy had a pet tiger, like that'd be kind of neat. Nobody'd expect that. And then in my head, I'd be like, well, how do you do a pet tiger in a TV show? Is that going to work? And then I'd go, no, fuck it. I'm doing the tiger. I got to do the tiger. I can't be a sellout. And thinking about it, I might not have done the tiger if there had ever been, if there hadn't been a TV show, because I might have thought to myself, well, that's kind of ridiculous. It's not really practical to have a pet tiger in an apocalypse. How would you find enough meat to keep a tiger fed? The tiger would eventually eat you. Yeah. And also tigers are loud. They're going to attract zombies to you. This doesn't make any damn sense. But because I had that initial thought of, well, how would they do it on the show? I forced myself to do it for integrity's sake. And so I try to keep that mindset in everything. If I have a weird idea and I think it could work, and if I worry that it might damage the status quo or pull me too far away from what the book or whatever is supposed to be, I still kind of do it, because I'm like, well, no, I had the idea and I have to kind of, I don't know, like it's like there's a thing in my head that makes me think of these things, and that's the thing that makes the stories interesting. And if I start questioning that, then the stories might not work, I guess. Did I answer your question at all? I kind of
that's great. That's a great train of thought on it, and it actually leads to a question from Patreon that I want to give you. Spragu wrote into patreon.com/kindafunny and says, hey, Robert, been a big fan of your work for a little while now. latecomer. And one thing I wanted to say is how I really
not too long.
No, I haven't been around forever. I really love how you handle your books, from things like shadow drops to creating fake solicitations for the end of The Walking Dead. How do you decide to handle these things? Also, I love Firepower. It may just be my favorite yet. Of course, another book from you there. Yeah, let's talk about that. Like, you knew how you wanted to end Walking Dead. You knew you were on the path to do that. I guess this goes back to a little bit of the Tiger, but was there a moment of like, do I really want to end this comic book that's this important to the industry, let alone the empire that is Walking Dead, in the throes of Walking Dead being one of the biggest things on the planet? Like, because if you're not aware of fans who didn't watch the comic book club, go to hell. The fact that it was like, you made up fake issues to put into Diamond preview guides so that when the issue hit that ended Walking Dead, it surprised everybody. I woke up that morning and people were like, Greg, grab Walking Dead now. Don't read anything else. Get in there. And this is the final issue of The Walking Dead. Totally unexpected.
I can't remember. Did you actually read through the issue not knowing it was the last issue?
No, by the time I was like, what? And then like, I saw it on Reddit too, of like somebody had screenshotted the page of like your letter there. And I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, I remember by the time I read it, it was still a question of what was going on. Like, I didn't believe it when it ended. And I remember talking to Greg just being like, what? Like, how is this real? Especially because, and I'm sure you can correct me on this, like, it was right after a big tentpole number, right? It was after like a 150 or a 200 or something like that.
7 issues prior to 200. It was
exactly. Okay. It was like, it wasn't where you'd expect it at all.
Yeah, which was just it was perfect the way that worked out, because and it was an issue.
You're a troll.
It was an issue. It was an issue after I mean, people call me a troll sometimes, and I'm like, that's not nice. I guess it applies, but
it's not nice. Accurate, but not nice.
I'm just trying to, a troll, I guess, is trying to get a rise out of people. But what I'm trying to do as a storyteller is shock people and excite people and I guess sometimes confuse people, but also just give you something you're not expecting. I think I come at this stuff like a fan. As a fan, I am sometimes going, this is boring. Why, like, what is expected is happening. Like, as a fan, I'm going, I get a announcement of a comic book and I see what's coming. And then like, I have to wait 6 months for it to actually come out. And I've seen preview pages and I know what it's about. And I've kind of guessed what the story is going to be. And then I read the comic and I'm like, that was pretty good. Is there any way to not do that? And so that kind of gets me thinking about different ways to, get a comic book into stores and different ways to, surprise people. With the end of Walking Dead, we didn't announce that it was the end. It was a $2.99 issue. We didn't announce that it was oversized, and I can't remember exactly, but I think it was like 80 pages. So it was almost the size of a trade paperback in and of itself. And it just showed up in stores as a $2.99 issue. And I was hoping that people would be like, why is this issue so big? I don't understand. And by the time you get to like page 40, when you're reading it, you're like, wait a minute, is this the end? Like, could this be the end? This is bizarre. And I wanted it to feel as shocking and surprising as a lot of the deaths that had happened in the series. I recently called it in an interview the greatest gift I could give the fan base, which I guess, again, sounds kind of trollish, but if you've invested in The Walking Dead for 193 issues, you have, ridden some waves. You've gone up, you've gone down, you've dealt with some massive character deaths. You've been upset by them. You've carried on. You've invested in this series. To just announce the end of the series and then have you anticipate what the end would be for a year and guess like, oh, maybe they'll do this, maybe they'll do that, only to be disappointed that we didn't do the thing that you wanted to do. I wanted to kind of avoid that. I wanted to just, kind of like walk off the stage without you really expecting it. With Charlie Adlard, of course, I don't want to take credit for everything or anything. We talked about it a lot, and we wanted to go out on a high note, and we definitely didn't want to do Walking Dead every month for the rest of our lives. I mean, it's monthly comics is a bit of a grind, especially if you're a comic book artist. It's kind of a walk in the park for a writer, but Charlie was definitely feeling the pressure of having to do an issue of Walking Dead every month. And when you look back and you're like, oh, I've been doing this for 16, 17 years. Like, am I doing this for 16 or 17 more years? Is this really what I want to do? It gets to be a little, like the pressure starts to build up. But I don't know. I feel like we picked a good time to go out, and I'm really happy with how it ended. But we'll see.
How long did you know you were going to end it there? Because did any of it come from you looking at 200 and just being like, I can't think of something. I don't want to come up with something that is like shocking just because it's the 200th issue?
I've said it publicly, and my brain kind of mows over things. So it's like, whatever I said in the past, that was the answer. I think it was like 7 years or 6 years. I don't know. It was a number of years that we had been planning to wrap it up. I think it was in between Compendium 2 and 3 coming out, or we were working on the material that was in Compendium 3. It ended up being a 4-compendium series, and each compendium has 48 issues in it. Roughly, I think the last one has 49 issues in it. But we knew that if we didn't stop at 193, we would have to do another 48 issues, because Charlie and I are very anal about like books sitting on a shelf. And so
thank you for that. It's appreciated.
It's important to me. It's important to a lot of fans, but yeah, it is, it's a big deal. But, we didn't want to have like 3 books and then a small compendium that wraps it up. And so we had a discussion of like, well, are we doing 5 of these things, or are we wrapping up at 4? And that was very early on in the process. So it was at least 4 or 5 years. And then over time, as it got closer, it got scarier and scarier because, it was getting more and more real. Like, I had been writing the story to that conclusion, and I had known that it was coming. And then the fact that no one else knows, you start to be like, have I made a horrible mistake? Is everyone gonna
dial us back?
And we told so few people that there were people that are, fairly close to me in my life that were like, dude, the fuck? Like, I thought we were friends. Like, what the fuck? And that's no good. But I always just say like, no, I made a rule that I only told people I had to tell. And if I, didn't have to tell you, I didn't tell you, no matter how close we were. So yeah, I pissed a lot of people off, I guess.
With both Invincible and Walking Dead, when you go into them, especially now that both are, in terms of comics, finished, like, is there like a Bible set of rules that you come up with that you stick to, and do those ever change? Like, this character can't die, or this character has to die, or there will be a cure or won't be a cure for the Walking Dead and all that stuff?
There's things like that crop up as you get deeper into the run, and people keep pitching ideas that you shoot down, and then you're just like, okay, let's not do that, But there's not like a set Bible for the Invincible series, for instance. There's not like no superhero shall have this power, There's nothing like that. Working with Simon Rasiopa, the head writer, and Jeff Allen, supervising director, and the team, I want to make it clear I'm not doing this stuff by myself. Corey Walker, lead character designer, super great guy. Couldn't do the show without him. And he's very much involved. He's reading scripts and he's giving notes, and he'll be like, I don't think this character should say this, and I'll be like, okay, you're right. But
whatever you say.
Never disagree with Corey. But because I've worked with the guy for like 20 years, and you eventually realize he's right. Sometimes after you've not listened to him, and then you regret it. But he's a real smart guy. But yeah, anything that's big that comes up that is a big change from the comic, we work all that stuff out and we decide if we're going to do that. But there's not any kind of set list of things to avoid. It might go better if there was.
Our time with you's up. My question is, do you miss The Walking Dead? Do you miss writing The Walking Dead, the comic?
Yes and no. Sometimes I think about like, I'm sure Carl had some more adventures. If I could spoil the end for anyone that hasn't read the comic.
For years we've been telling them about the book. It's on them at this point.
Yeah. But so I think about the characters a lot, but I'm so happy with how it ended and proud of, what Charlie and I were able to accomplish. I wouldn't want to mess anything up by going back. That said, we went back this year. We did Negan Lives, which was another thing that was fun and really exciting because we got to, do a comic without telling anybody, that just kind of showed up in stores. I would love to do more things like that. I think if time allowed, it's possible that we'll drag Negan out and do something else with him at some point. It's possible that there's, maybe something somewhat Walking Dead related, somewhat in the works that may possibly be announced at some point before the end of this year. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Why would you? Don't help me out. It's fine. No big deal.
People can turn that into an article. Don't worry.
Oh, they will. Don't worry. It'll happen. There's a .com out there right now that we're going to, don't worry about it.
Yeah. On the Kind of Funny podcast, blah, 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 Robert Kirkman said, and then hopefully they'll link to you, but maybe they won't.
They probably won't. I get that all the time.
No. They'll still tell me I have garbage opinions on Mandalorian, so it won't matter.
The comments will for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Don't worry about it.
And I stand by that. But yeah, I guess I pretty much answered that question. I like the ending. I don't want to mess it up, but we probably will.
Okay. Good. Robert, thank you so much for all your time today.
No, thank you, man. This was a lot of fun.
Of course, Invincible, Amazon right now. You can go get it. You can go watch it. By the time you see this, right, first 4 episodes are up. Yeah, about. Well, I guess it goes live tomorrow, right, Tim? So that's. Yeah, it'll all time out. 4 episodes. Yeah. You can go get it.
Yeah, 4 episodes. Go watch it. Hey, Greg, let's never do this again.
You got it. Yeah, of course. Don't worry about it. What was this? Well, this was the Kind of Funny podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Each and every week, twice a week, we come together to bullshit with our friends about whatever it is we want to bullshit about. If you like that, you can head over to patreon.com/kindoffunny, where, of course, you can watch us record the show live like a little boy named Chris Anka did. If you were watching live, thank you so much. Remember, you get the post show right now. That's right. We're going over to patreon.com/kindoffunny to do a post show for this one. You could also get the show over there ad free. You could also write in to be part of it. You could do a whole bunch of different stuff. But if you have no bucks tossed our way for any of that, no big deal. You can go to youtube.com/kindoffunny. You can go to podcast services around the globe. You get a brand spanking new episode twice a week, every week. Until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.